Hello, dear friends. I'm glad to welcome you to the channel. Today, we're going to talk about something truly fundamental, a question that has concerned humanity since ancient times. Get comfortable, because we have a fascinating journey ahead into the world of science, logic, and amazing discoveries. Let's begin. Have you ever thought about how incredible your existence is? Not in a philosophical sense, but in a literal, mathematical one. Every cell in your body contains information that is more complex than all the libraries in the world combined. Your heart beats about 100,000 times a day without a break for weekends. Your brain contains more neural connections than there are stars in the Milky Way. And all of this was supposed to appear by chance? Let's talk today about the most fundamental question a person can ask. Where did we come from? Was life created by an intelligent creator? Or did it arise by itself as a result of blind chemical processes? This isn't just an academic question. The answer to it determines how we understand ourselves, our place in the universe, and the meaning of our existence. Let's start with numbers because mathematics doesn't lie. Imagine the simplest living cell. Not a human cell with its incredible complexity, but the most primitive bacterium capable of independent existence. Even such a simple cell contains about 250 genes minimally necessary for life. Each gene is a sequence of nucleotides that must be arranged in a strictly defined order to encode a functional protein. Imagine that you're trying to assemble a meaningful sentence by randomly selecting letters from a bag. The chance of getting even a short phrase of 10 letters approaches 0. Now imagine that you need to randomly compose an entire encyclopedia, and in such a way that all the articles are connected to each other and work as a single system. Mathematician Fred Hoyle calculated the probability of the random emergence of even one functional protein of average length. The result was a number with a probability of 1 in 10 to the 40,000th power. To understand the scale, in the entire observable universe there are approximately 10 to the 80 power atoms. The age of the universe is about 10 to the 17th power seconds. Even if every atom in the universe tried to assemble this protein every second since the Big Bang, there would be no chance. Hoyle, by the way, was an atheist when he started these calculations. The results shocked him so much that he stated, "The probability of spontaneous origin of life is comparable to the probability that a tornado flying over a junkyard would assemble a Boeing 747. Evolutionary theory speaks of natural selection, survival of the fittest. This is a logical mechanism, and we actually observe it in nature. But there's one fundamental problem. Natural selection can only work with what is already alive. It doesn't explain how life itself appeared. This is called the problem of abiogenesis, the emergence of living from non-living. All experiments in this direction, starting with the famous Miller-Urey experiment of 1953, ended with the same result. At best, scientists managed to obtain the simplest organic molecules, amino acids. But between amino acids and a living cell is a chasm that cannot be crossed by random processes. Why? Because a living cell is not just a collection of chemical substances. It's an information system of incredible complexity. DNA contains code that determines the structure of thousands of proteins. These proteins, in turn, are necessary for reading and implementing information from DNA. It's a closed loop. Without DNA, there are no proteins. Without proteins, DNA doesn't work. Imagine a computer program. Can you expect that a working operating system will appear if you randomly write zeros and ones to a hard drive? Moreover, you need not only software, but also hardware, processor, memory, motherboard. And in a cell, there are even more of this hardware, organelles, membranes, transport systems, than components in a computer. One of the strongest arguments in favor of creation is the nature of information. Our experience unequivocally shows information always has an intelligent source. Every time we see written text, a computer program, a blueprint or instruction, we know that there's intelligence behind it. DNA is literally code, a language with a 4-letter alphabet, nucleotides A, T, G, C, that contains precise instructions for assembling all the proteins of an organism. This is not a metaphor, it's a real information code, more dense and efficient than any human data storage system. In 1 gram of DNA, you can encode 215 petabytes of information. Imagine you're walking on a beach and find an inscription in the sand. "Welcome to Freedom Island." Will you have any doubt that this is the work of an intelligent being? Will it occur to you that the waves randomly washed the sand into such a configuration? Of course not. But why, when discovering an incomparably more complex code in the DNA of every living being, should we assume that it arose by chance? When Darwin formulated his theory in the 19th century, the cell seemed like a simple bag with protoplasm. Today, we know that a cell is an entire city of nanotechnology, where millions of precisely coordinated processes occur every second. Take, for example, the bacterial flagellum, a tiny motor that allows a bacterium to move. It's a real rotary engine at the molecular level that rotates at speeds up to 100,000 revolutions per minute. It has a rotor, stator, bearings, a system for switching from forward to reverse. It consists of approximately 40 different proteins, and if you remove even one, the entire system stops working. This is a problem for evolution, known as irreducible complexity. Natural selection works step by step, preserving useful mutations. But if the system only works in full configuration, how could all its parts appear separately? Half a motor is useless. 3/4 of a motor doesn't spin either. It's like if you were trying to invent a car, evolving from a bicycle, adding one part at a time, with the design having to be functional and useful at each stage. Or look at the blood clotting process. It's a cascade of at least 10 different proteins, each of which activates the next. Remove one, and the system collapses. Either the blood won't clot at all, and the organism will die from the slightest scratch, or it will clot constantly, thrombosis. How could such a system have evolved gradually if it only works as a whole? Evolutionary theory assumes gradual, smooth development from simple to complex over millions of years. If this is so, the fossil record should show countless transitional forms, organisms that are halfway between one species and another. But what do we actually see? About 540 million years ago, in the Cambrian period, suddenly, by geological standards, almost instantaneously, most of the major types of animals that we know today appear. Trilobites with complex eyes, arthropods with segmented bodies, mollusks with complex nervous systems, all appear out of nowhere, without obvious ancestors in more ancient layers. Darwin himself acknowledged this as the most serious objection to his theory. He hoped that future finds would fill these gaps. A century and a half of intensive excavations has passed, but the situation hasn't changed. The gaps remain. Moreover, the more fossils we find, the clearer the picture becomes. New forms appear suddenly, exist relatively unchanged for millions of years, and then either go extinct or continue to exist. The slow, smooth evolution that Darwin predicted simply isn't in the fossil record. Let's rise to a higher level, from biology to cosmology. It turns out that the universe itself demonstrates signs of design. Physicists have discovered that the fundamental constants of nature, the speed of light, the force of gravity, the charge of an electron, and dozens of other parameters, are tuned so precisely that changing any of them, even by a negligible fraction of a percent, would make life impossible. For example, if the force of gravity were slightly stronger, stars would burn out too quickly, and life wouldn't have time to develop. If it were slightly weaker, stars wouldn't be able to form at all. The ratio of proton mass to electron mass must be exactly what it is, otherwise atoms couldn't exist. The cosmological constant is tuned to an accuracy of 1 part in 10 to the 120 power. It's like hitting a coin on the other side of the universe. This phenomenon is called the fine-tuning of the universe, and it's so striking that many atheist physicists invented the multiverse theory to explain it. The logic goes like this. If there are an infinite number of universes with all possible combinations of constants, then it's no surprise that we found ourselves in the one where life is possible. But think about the logic of this explanation. To avoid the conclusion of intelligent design of our one universe, an infinite number of invisible, unprovable universes are invented. This is no longer science, it's philosophy, and quite a desperate one at that. Look around. Nature doesn't just work, it's beautiful. The symmetry of a butterfly, the spiral of a mollusk shell, the geometry of honeycombs, the fractal patterns of a fern. All of this follows mathematical laws of harmony, the golden ratio, Fibonacci numbers, which have inspired artists and architects for centuries. Why would evolution create beauty? Natural selection only cares about survival and reproduction, but we see in nature excessive complexity, elegance of solutions that exceed simple functionality. The human eye distinguishes about 10 million shades of color, much more than needed for survival. Musical hearing, the ability to enjoy symmetry, the sense of beauty, all this goes beyond utilitarian necessity. And take animal instincts. Birds that have never seen their parents build nests of construction specific to their species. A newborn turtle hatches on a beach and immediately crawls to the sea, though it has never seen it. A spider weaves a perfectly geometric web according to an innate program. Where does this knowledge come from? How could a blind process of mutations program such complex behavioral algorithms? And finally, the biggest mystery of all, human consciousness. How did matter give birth to mind? How do chemical reactions in the brain create subjective experience? Your I, your ability to think, feel, make decisions, be aware of yourself. Materialist philosophy claims that consciousness is just a side effect of neuron work, an illusion created by the brain. But if this is so, then why should we trust our reason, including scientific conclusions? If our thoughts are just the result of chemical processes optimized for survival, not for seeking truth, then we have no basis to believe that they reflect reality. Darwin himself acknowledged this problem, writing, "A horrid doubt comes to me. Can the convictions of man's mind, which has been developed from the mind of lower animals, be trusted at all? Moreover, we possess abilities that cannot be explained by survival. Abstract thinking, mathematics, philosophy, art, moral sense, search for meaning. We are the only creatures on the planet who look at the stars and wonder where we came from. Evolution didn't need to create philosophers. For reproduction, it would have been enough to remain at the level of primates. Look at the totality of all these facts, the mathematical impossibility of random emergence of even the simplest cell, the information code in DNA that has no analogs in non-living nature, molecular machines of irreducible complexity, the sudden appearance of complex life forms in the fossil record, the fine-tuning of the universe, the beauty and purposefulness of nature, the mystery of human consciousness. Each of these facts individually raises serious questions for evolutionary theory. Together, they form a powerful argument in favor of intelligent design. The universe and life bear the imprint of intelligence, complexity, information, purposefulness, beauty. Of course, this is not mathematical proof of the existence of a creator, but science in general rarely proves anything absolutely. It works with the best explanations of available data. And when we look at the evidence impartially, the conclusion seems obvious. Life, consciousness, the universe, these are not chance, not a lucky lottery in a casino of chaos. This is the result of design, a plan, a creative act of intelligence that exceeds our understanding. The question is not whether we have enough faith to believe in a creator. The question is whether we have enough faith to believe the opposite, that all this incredible complexity, beauty, and purposefulness appeared by itself, without cause, without design, without intelligence. For me, this requires much more faith than acknowledging the obvious. In the beginning was intelligence. Friends, thank you for staying with me until the end of this journey. If this video made you think, if at least one thought resonated in your heart, that's already a victory. We live in an amazing time when science reveals to us such depths of complexity and beauty of the universe that it's impossible to remain indifferent. Every cell in your body right now is a symphony of coordination. Every heartbeat is a miracle of engineering thought surpassing all human inventions. Don't forget to like if the material was useful, subscribe to the channel, and share the video with those who might find it interesting. And most importantly, continue to seek truth, ask questions, and don't be afraid to follow where the evidence leads, even if it contradicts prevailing opinions. Write in the comments your thoughts. I'm really interested in your opinion. Until we meet again, and remember, you are not an accident, you are a design.